So I think as of right now, Avengers Endgame has made $16 trillion. Has it?
In this part of the universe.
In this part, that's right. In this part of the non-Marvel universe.
Yeah.
It's a monster. The question I have, and I on radio on Film Week just last couple days ago, I predicted it would go. I don't think I said this on the air. I think I said this afterwards to Larry and to Amy, but I think it's going to go over $3 billion.
Oh, really?
I do.
Worldwide.
Worldwide. Avatar is at 2.7. Star Wars Force Awakens is like 2.3. I don't see how there's any conceivable way that this doesn't blow right past both of those. It's time. It's time.
Look, I won't disagree. The only thing that might hurt it a little bit is that 3-hour, 40.5 second running time, simply because it limits the number of times you can actually show it in a 24-hour
Except
period.
you know how they're getting around that. You've seen the big boards at places like the ArcLight. It's ridiculous. They've dedicated every screen to it.
Well, yeah. That's just cheating. That's just cheating.
Well, and it's also because you think, my goodness, you've got 22 screens and 21 of them are showing Avengers, and the only one that isn't is showing Captain Marvel for people who need that last-minute refresher. Who are like, oh crap, I didn't see Captain Marvel. Okay, I'll go in there and see it, and then I'll come right out and see, Endgame. It's because everything else is just cleared out. It's clear they've cleared a wide berth. Nothing else.
They got Shazam out a couple of weeks ahead,
played out, though.
so it could do its numbers and get out of the way. It's not losing any money to this.
No.
It made its money and now it's out of there. Hellboy. Sorry guys, that's just that just didn't happen.
And there's nothing else big opening for several. Everyone really just wants to give it a wide berth.
Yeah,
they know they can't. I mean, and Disney's clogged up all the screens anyhow, so nobody has any chance to sort of sneak in there. I think week after next, by the third week, those screens will start getting released. But it's by then. I think it's going to be well over $2 billion after just 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and then it's easily going to go over $3 billion. I don't see how it doesn't.
Now we're not going to give up any spoilers regarding.
None.
I mean, it's been out there for a minute. But
I
will say this about it. We both like this movie.
Yes, we do.
We both like this movie more or less for the same reasons. And the thing that we really like about it.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's fair. We can say this. I'll say this. I'm warm and cold on these Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
The good ones are good, and the other ones are not.
Stinky.
Yeah. So I'm not one of these people who are just going to love this movie. So for me to say that I like this movie a lot.
Yep.
And this movie made me cry 3 times.
I'm 5 or 6 for me.
Even while I still think it's too long, I still think it's too. This is one disagreement that you and I have about it. But the very fact that I like this movie a lot, I think really speaks well of it.
Yeah.
Really, if I'm not inclined, folks, to be in this spot.
The thing that I find most satisfying about it, and we have to remember that the screenwriters of this started on the Chronicles of Narnia movies, and they're returning to that a little bit in this. They didn't begin as action guys, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about McFeely and Marcus, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. They didn't start as action guys. They started as storytelling guys,
narrative guys.
The Narnia films are not all about CGI battles and monsters. They're actually very
they're character films.
Those are allegories that were written with a very clear kind of spiritual intent by C.S. Lewis. So they bring all of that to this, and Endgame differs radically from Infinity War in that it's a completely different kind of film. Infinity War sets it up, but Infinity War is wall-to-wall action. It is wall-to-wall action building to an apocalyptic moment where all of that action has been futile.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a normal Hollywood tentpole person, well, you turn this into a big old revenge movie.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, now we put it together and we get hopped up into a time machine, go back in time, and we kick Thanos' ass in the big old battle that lasts like 50 minutes, and then woohoo, fist pumping time.
Yeah, you literally make the Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Jedi.
Sure, and that is exactly what this film would have been in the hands of anybody else. But Kevin Feige, who on Friday on the radio I called the first executive auteur in movie history, he knows that's not what this is about. He is faithful to the comic tradition, and this thing winds up being, to the credit of Feige and to the screenwriters, Marcus and McFeely, it winds up being thoughtful, reflective, meditative, philosophical, Sure, it's got action, but it winds up actually having all of these very, very deep moments in it. And the best moments in that movie are when two actors are just sitting in a room talking to each other about something meaningful. And
Yeah.
there's no CGI and there's no nothing. It's just it's really it's quite impressive.
Well, a film about family, a film full of love stories. This is the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
Anybody who listens to the show or listens to me on the radio know that I love a good love story.
Yeah.
Father, son, son,
There
daughter. Just love stories all over the place.
There are dad moments all over this thing.
Yeah.
Tons of dad moments. And I'm a dad, and every time there was a dad moment, I just started crying. I just started crying almost uncontrollably.
Yeah, and by dad moments, it's not always just Tony Stark and Spider.
Yeah,
Really, Spider Boy is what he is. That's his dad.
Sure, that's a surrogate dad moment.
And then there's him and his dad.
Yeah, they're all kinds of really, really just great through lines in it. And yeah, it is about family on many levels. It's about the individual families of the Avengers. It's about the Avengers as a family.
Mm-hmm.
It's about humanity as a family. It's about the family of fans who love the Marvel films. It's about the family of the filmmaking community. I mean, there are a lot of levels to what it says about family. And I just I have a think piece I'm gonna put up on cinegods.com that I'm working out the details of. But I think there's a lot to say about this. And here's another question: do you think, given now that Black Panther got us over the hump, and it was first Logan got us over the hump of, you know what, you can give a major Oscar nomination to a superhero movie. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave it a screenplay nomination. And then Black Panther said, you know what, it's okay. You can nominate a superhero movie for Best Picture. Mm-hmm. You missed it with The Dark Knight. Here's your second chance. Feel better now? Now that you got it out of your system, are you okay? So now that we're over that hump, is this going to get nominated for Best Picture next year?
It very likely. Very, very, very likely.
I think so too.
What's interesting, though, it will not get a Best Director's nomination. It's going to get nominated for Best Picture, but those boys, the Russo brothers,
just like Black Panther.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. They're not going to give enough credit for that. Screenplay is the one that it ought to get nominated for.
I agree.
So I mean, it's because the thing of it is, a lot of movies are going to come out between now and then. I doubt that it would win Best Picture.
No, I don't see that.
So, but I would be very happy if it won Best Screenplay.
Yeah,
it's just some beautiful writing. It's just some beautiful writing in that movie.
Some really good writing, and structurally too. They do some things, and I really hope that all of these whorish individuals who've been peddling the 3-act structure and the this and the that and the other thing. I really would love for people to analyze in film schools and in screenwriting clinics. I would love for them to analyze a screenplay because it breaks a lot of rules. It really does. It takes a lot of chances. And it breaks a lot of rules, and I'm thrilled that it did. Let's talk just for a second about some of the people who were part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a moment and are no longer. Now, obviously, the War Machine we were talking about yesterday that changed.
It was Terrence Howard.
That was Terrence Howard
35
originally.
seconds, yeah.
And he wanted too much money. I think after Iron Man, he said, I'm part of this too. I want more money. I'm surprised they didn't assign him to more movies right out of the gate. But I guess they didn't know how Iron Man was going to do.
Yeah.
But then Don Cheadle got the call. And
yeah, he was perfectly happy for whatever they were doing.
Perfectly happy. So let's also talk about the original Thanos, which
yes.
I brought that up with you yesterday.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Because there is an original Thanos, by the way, folks.
Yeah. So the original Thanos was Damien Poitier before they cast Josh Brolin. And if you remember that little tag at the end of the first Avengers where he kind of looks over his shoulder with a smirk like, I'm the man. And a lot of people who were not comic fans in that moment are like, who that? What's going on here? I'm confused. Some guy with like a wrinkly chin and a blue skin. I don't get it. Anyway, that was the first that we saw of Thanos, and that was portrayed by Damien Poitier, who is a stuntman.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. The original Thanos was a black dude.
Yeah,
people don't realize that.
Damien, he runs around these movies. I wouldn't look him up.
Yeah,
he runs around all these movies. He's in.
He's one
of
the top stuntmen in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And obviously they needed somebody, and he had the body and the whole deal. And it's like, okay, let's do a little mocap on you. you're here, you're on salary. So Damien Poitier, the original Thanos.
If you're a big fan of the Flash television series, like we are,
yeah,
he plays Goldface on Flash.
that's right. Yeah.
So talking up Damien.
Yeah. Anyway, fun little bit of trivia there. So yeah, it's all good stuff. So so was it the Guardians of the Galaxy or the original Avengers? Which was the one that had the Thanos tag on it? It might have been Guardians of the Galaxy.
No, I thought it. No, you're right. It was Guardians of the Galaxy.
It was
Guardians. It was Guardians. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's all good.
Funny.
So, good stuff. So let's kind of. Do we have anything else going on? We've had so many people have died too. A lot of.
There's the situation with John Singleton.
That is so upsetting.
At the moment of this recording, he's in a coma. After having had a stroke, age of 51.
Luke Perry thing all over.
Luke Perry 2-3 months ago, whatever it was, also 50 something. You and I joke about the dude. Our generation. These are our people.
I know,
and we're not holding up. Which is nuts. My mother, who's approximately 175 years old, still works full time, walks to work every day.
Yeah,
every day.
That's why.
And as it happens, I know John Singleton's mother, Sheila Ward, who's played by Angela Bassett in that original movie, a lovely woman who lives not terribly far from here. At that time of this taping, she had gotten.
She's the
executor,
right? She's executor, yeah.
So anyway, that's the thing. It's interesting. John. So John basically did for the West Coast. For West Coast filmmakers at the time, what Spike did for East Coast filmmakers in the middle 80s. So, 91, Boys in the Hood, made that movie about South Central, about that community, about people from his own community.
Youngest ever Oscar-nominated director.
Nominated for a screenplay that year too. And that those first 3 or 4 films. I refuse to talk about him in the past tense. I'm not going to do it.
No.
Those first 3 or 4 films, Higher Learning, Poetic Justice, Rosewood, were really, really powerful films. Not perfect films, but powerful films talking about all of these issues that were really, really, he's a little bit younger than me, so it was really interesting sort of watching him go. And then he went more commercial, the Shafts and the Hustle and Flows and all those. And
he did one of the Fast and the Furious.
One of the Fast and Furious. I mean, look, not.
Those are paydays, man. I don't take that away from anybody.
Well, Spike did the exact opposite thing. Yeah. Now, but John built a little empire. Doing that stuff commercial. So if you look up John Singleton's IMDb, look under the executive producer credits and blow your mind at how many noted series and movies and everything else he had his fingers in. He had his fingers in all that.
And
stuff.
It was still and we're we certainly hope he makes a recovery. That there is something to be said for the power of medical science to take people out of these situations, but it is grim at the moment, and I hope it doesn't go south. But we are prepared for it. So very sad. Right. Well, let's get into it. I'm going to go through some kid vid here real quickly. Got a whole bunch of really interesting things for the kids. I have a daughter who is 6 years old in kindergarten, and the taste in kid vid is always changing. Excuse me. Nature Cat, and Mr. Hyde, Hide. That's a PBS Kids thing. We have, it's funny. This is one of those shows that she'll see a little commercial for, a little promo for, and go, "Have I ever seen that?" And obviously the answer is no. And the intimation of that is, maybe I should see that. Maybe you should show that to me. And there just aren't enough hours in the day because there is school. But Nature Cat, actually, like all the PBS Kids stuff, is cute. It's not top tier, I wouldn't say, but it's got some cute characters, and it's educational, and it's relatively well done. So I mean, I'm not why not? Sure. 20 Incredible Tales features over 4 hours of fun, also from PBS Kids. This is one of those potpourri things. It just combines a lot of different stuff together. Super Y and Wild Kratts, and there is a Nature Cat on here. Dinosaur Train, Daniel Tiger, Caillou Arthur, Ready Jet Go, Peg Plus Cat, Odd Squad, Word World. It's all on here. Just a whole bunch of stuff. This is basically to put on, let it run, and keep your kid occupied. The Super Y stuff is always really, really good. But what I like about this is it gives you a sampling of what's out there in PBS Kids. It's not expensive. If you just want something to sort of keep the kids busy and to see what they respond to, it's a great sampler. That way you're not spending money on a whole lot of different things. The Highway Rat is based on this very, very popular children's book, which we don't have, and we have a lot of them. But this is the Highway Rat is from the same from Julia Donaldson and illustrator Alex Scheffler, who did the Gruffalo and Room on the Broom and a lot of these other ones. And it's one of the few of the Julia Donaldson books that we do need to get. This is animated by the same people that did the animation version of Room on the Broom. I would say it doesn't substitute for the book, but it's a nice complement to the book, and it's decent animation. It's a very clever and cute story, and but I'm not gonna. I wouldn't recommend anybody show this to a kid until you've read them the book, because the book is the magic, and then this is sort of like a cherry on top. So we need to get the book, and then I will show my daughter the Highway Rat. But it's actually quite clever and very, very smart, and I can watch this without having read the book because I'm a grown up. Tim has something surgical on the television behind him right now, and I'm a little bit creeped out. I just saw some.
That's I'll tell you about it later.
Okay. Boy, that distracted me. The Adventures of Jurassic Pet. This is has one of those Dove-approved deals, and all I could think is this is kind of like a lowbrow version of E.T. crossed with Night at the Museum. And I don't really much care for this. It's basically, this is a live action movie. It's from Grindstone, who of course, as we pointed out many times, Grindstone is an independent production company that has a deal with Lionsgate to furnish them two kinds of films: big, dumb, R-rated action movies that usually have Bruce Willis or Antonio Banderas in them, and then movies, family films about talking animals.
Strangest combination.
It is, right? It's just alpha and or whatever. The whole yin and yang is what it is. Yeah. So anyway, Grindstone did the Adventures of Jurassic Pet, and the idea here is a live action film about this teenager who comes across what he thinks is just like a souvenir egg of some kind. And guess what? It's actually a T-Rex egg, and he winds up being, daddy to a little baby T-Rex. Yeah. And it's just the strangest thing in the world.
A movie about a boy and his T-Rex.
It really doesn't work in any way whatsoever. But, power to Grindstone for thinking that they can. Some more from PBS Kid here. PBS Kids has Wild Kratts, the Briny Blue Sea, which is, Wild Kratts is one of the less interesting but more educational. I guess those things kind of go hand in hand. Yes, you do learn a lot about the ocean and animals and stuff here, and especially otters. But I can't say that I get super, super excited about this. It's a little bit like Dinosaur Train, It combines educational and animation in the same way. Ready, Jet, Go, Chasing the Sun. Not a big fan of this, but this has 8 different episodes, and there are kids that really, really love this. And this is all kind of astronomy education and solar system education, a little bit more kind of general science stuff. You learn about sunspots and the sun and orbits and things like that. So it's okay. It's manageable. I can tolerate it. We also have from the Cartoon Network, Craig of the Creek, Itch to Explore. This has never been on DVD before, and there are about 13 different episodes here. This is season 1, part 1. I wish they would do the whole season all at once so that people don't have to suffer through that splitting up stuff. But this is okay. It's not exactly educational. It's just about kids and exploring, and it's kind of fantasy, wish fulfillment stuff. It's okay. It's a nice bunch of kids. I want to say it's a little bit in the vein of Rugrats / Fat Albert, in that it puts a bunch of kids together and you kind of fall in love with the personalities and the relationships. It's somewhere in there, and it's okay. Getting to some Nickelodeon stuff now. The Nickelodeon stuff continues, in my opinion, to be some of the best kid vid on television. And that does not necessarily include this latest, very aggressively animated Ninja Turtle series. This is Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which has a really raw, aggressive, unusual Ren and Stimpy-ish kind of style to it. Maybe a little bit more like some of the stuff that Disney on the Disney Channel was doing, Kim Possible and stuff like that. Taking a little bit of a cue from Pokemon, maybe. This one is, it's a little bit too aggressively animated for my taste, but there are 7 episodes here. Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for people who enjoy that. But here's the good Nickelodeon stuff. So Top Wing is delightful. This is Excellent Missions. EGG, excellent. Little pun there. And these are just cute little birds. These things are so much better than Angry Birds. They tried to take the Angry Birds game and turn it into a movie, and that was horrendous.
What a mess that was.
8 different episodes here, and they were all really, really fun. These guys are cute, and the animation is fun, and the writing is sharp, and I think this is a fun discovery for kids. So Top Wing gets a recommendation from me, as does Paw Patrol Ultimate Rescue. I'm not a big Paw Patrol fan generally because I have a daughter, but I know people who have little boys who love this thing, and it's great for them. So this is 5 episodes of Paw Patrol, and little boys. I mean, I'm sure there are some little girls that love Paw Patrol. Mine just doesn't happen to be one of them, but it's really, really fun. It's very, very cute for kids who do enjoy it. And then my favorite of all, you know what? Shimmer and Shine are just the best. Now, this is a combination like the 20 different one for PBS Kids. This is called Meet the Baby Animals. So there's a little bit of everything here, but the best of them is Shimmer and Shine. You get a Bubble Guppies on here, which is kind of like Shimmer and Shine with little mer people underneath the sea. You get a couple of Paw Patrols, and you get a Blaze and the Monster Machines episode called Spark Plug, which is cute. But there are 2 episodes of Shimmer and Shine on here that are a total and complete delight. A Lightning Colt for Shia and a Special Delivery. Shimmer and Shine is a really, really sweet show. I love the little genies. Maybe I'm thinking about little Barbara Edens, possibly. But so what? That's your problem, not mine.
Not my problem. I don't see if there's a problem. I don't even see the problem. A couple of from LGBT cinema before we press on to the new business.
Yeah.
A little bit there. Sunburn, lovely movie by Vincent Alves Doe, who's building quite a canon of sort of gay cinema. Generally speaking, sort of dramas built around a whole bunch of different sort of wacky relationships. This particular one is set out in the desert. 4 friends hanging out. They get a phone call. The phone call is from an ex of one of them from 10 years ago.
Oh.
And they want to come to dinner.
That's never a good sign.
That's never a good sign. But, it makes for an interesting sort of movie. It's a fairly smart and sexy little film. Portuguese with English subtitles. Guido Offline. This is just a lovely little movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's really about this little boy. It's about the little boy and his father. His father picks him up, takes him out to the country where there's no internet service and no cell phone service, and this kid is going bananas. He has a crush on a girl back home. He just wants to be on his phone and do his thing. And then he starts to realize that the guy that his dad is with seems to be kind of like his boyfriend.
Oh no!
And he has to sort of sort all that stuff out. It's it's an interesting little film.
That's an interesting premise.
It's an interesting premise.
Yeah.
How do you break a kid in? Look, dad's gay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go out to the woods and talk about it. Anyway, this also includes another film called Midnights with Adam, which is a short film that's made by the same filmmaker. Lovely stuff.
All right.
Some new biz.
Let's do the new biz. Yeah, I got all kinds of new stuff here.
Actually, you do Destroyer because I know because we talked about her, Karen.
Destroyer. We're getting so now we're in a little bit thin zone. Just so everybody knows, by the time we get into April and May, it's a little thinsville because we're getting the stuff that was released in theatrically in January and February, which, as everybody knows, is just horrendous. So we've kind of played out all of the Oscar season end of year stuff, but there are a few still trickling out, and one of them is Destroyer. From Karin Kusama. Karin Kusama, originally the director of Girl Fight. That was her big breakthrough. Great story with Girl Fight, too, because she was John Sayles' assistant, wrote that script, and John Sayles, being unlike anybody else in Hollywood, did not say, "You're my assistant. What the hell are you doing writing? Don't you know your place?" He said, "I love this. Why don't you let me finance your directing debut so you don't have to be my assistant anymore?"
Yeah.
It's unheard of in this town.
It's just, dude, it just, you know.
It's unheard of. And John Sayles financed it and saw a pretty penny off it and elevated Karyn Kusama to the wonderful
It
career that
made
she has
Michelle
now.
Rodriguez's career.
It did.
You know, that's
right.
that's 2000. That's almost 19 years ago.
Yeah.
All of that. And Karen, look her up. She works all the time.
She did the first Aeon Flux.
Yeah, you know, it just works all the time. That's a pretty good movie too.
The Destroyer's a really good film. The only problem I have with it is Nicole Kidman's makeup, which was clearly designed to make her as repulsive as possible. So we forget that she's Nicole Kidman. But it's a really they made this for less than $10 million. I think it was like $7 million they spent on this, and it is a really tough kind of Sidney Lumet style 70s era police action thriller drama. It's really right in that kind of Serpico-y vein.
Yeah.
And it's about a woman, a detective, a really grizzled detective played by Nicole Kidman, who's been through hell, who has a drinking problem. She like wakes up in her car. You know, this is not your let's go into the station and be careful out there today kind of detective. She's a dark detective with a chip on her shoulder and a history. And then the question is, how did it get to this? And what are the events that transpired? And I won't fill in any of this because it takes a lot of really interesting narrative risks. The script was co-written by her husband, as all of Karyn Kusama's stuff tends to be. And they did a great job. It's a sharp script. It's a really interesting approach to the crime thriller, and I think it's beautifully directed, and I can't wait for Karyn Kusama to keep doing more great work. Nicole Kidman in Destroyer, it's on Blu-ray with a Movies Anywhere code on it, and some other great supporting performances in here, just top-notch all the way. It's a really good film.
Good stuff. American Dresser. This is kind of film that when I read off the name of the guys, there's Tom Berenger, Keith David, Gina Gershon, Penelope Ann Miller, Jeff Fahey, Bruce Dern. You know, all big names at a time. You know, they're looking good and they're doing good work in this sort of a poignant and sweet film. It's about an old Vietnam vet played by Berenger, whose wife passes away. He's estranged from his daughters. So he and his buddy, played by Keith David, jump on their motorcycles, jump on their Harleys like these old guys do, and they decide to ride from Long Island, New York, all the way out to the West Coast.
Yep.
So we're just in a road trip movie, man. We're in a motorcycle road trip movie, just like Jack Nicholson and those guys back.
Sure.
Yeah, they one of those. You know, it's just sweet with these two old vets making their way across America, acting their asses off. By the way, it's just really good in that way. It's on Blu-ray and DVD. A couple of promotional spots on it as well. It's just, you know, Tom Berenger, man. Hadn't thought about him in years. And just can't go wrong with Keith David ever, as far as I'm concerned.
Anyway. You can't. One of the great all-time voices, too.
Let's see. Mission of Honor. This is an interesting story here. This is the story set during World War II about Polish RAF fighters, a squadron called the Hurricane Squadron 303. This is a real squadron of Polish fighter pilots. And basically what they were doing, obviously Poland was crushed fairly quickly by the Germans when they came in. Poland had only been a country for about 20 years. Before it was overrun by Germany.
That's true.
So what was really going on here is that these Polish RAF fighters were kind of fighting to maintain the notion that there was a country called Poland, because it could have very easily went away.
Yeah.
And there could have just been, you know, once there was this, but, you know, they were fighting for that, to maintain the notion that there is a nation called Poland.
Yeah.
And it will be back. And it's really just a moving and poignant story about this squadron, the Hurricane Squadron. This is on Blu-ray.
So many World War II stories still to come. That war created so many stories.
Yeah.
It's no
because
end of them.
It was in fact a world war, you know, all over the place.
So the idea of changelings and fairies continues to permeate Irish folklore, has for forever. There are a whole bunch of movies that have dealt with this, and they come out every so often. And The Hole in the Ground is another one of them. This is pretty decent stuff. This is from Lionsgate. It's only on DVD, not on Blu-ray. But if you like that whole kind of Celtic folkloric horror genre, you will probably thoroughly enjoy this. This is about a single mom and her son. They go to this. They've just moved to a new place in the pastoral Irish countryside. And as anybody who knows anything about Ireland, you don't want to take your children into the countryside because it's filled with fairies and they're going to kidnap your kid. It's just what happens in Ireland all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
See? And sure enough, suddenly she begins to think that, when her son comes back after being missing, that's not my son anymore. What's going on here? And so begins the odyssey of trying to prove to everybody that your son isn't your son and your son is really some kind of a changeling, and there are evil fairies or aliens or whatever you want to call them that are lurking in the woods somewhere. And it's called The Hole in the Ground. And it is very well done. It's a genre film. It's straight up genre, but I thought it was really sharp.
And here's another one over here. Yeah, explain this to me. So this film, Dragged Across the Concrete, right? Mel Gibson.
Mark hates this film.
Well, it's because it's terrible. Mel Gibson, but this is the thing. These are movie stars. These guys, Mel Gibson, Vince Vaughn, Michael Jai White, Jennifer Carpenter. Thomas Kretschmann, Don Johnson pops up in this movie. He's also in the Brawl in Cell Block 99, which was also a Vince. So what's going on here? Where have these guys gone? What are these movies? This did not get a theatrical release.
I know. I didn't even know this existed until Mark saw it in Paris, and he emailed us, and he was saying, "Oh, this film is terrible." I was like, "What are you talking about? That Mel Gibson film with Vince Vaughn?" And I'm like, Mel Gibson? What are you talking about? What do you do? You live in an alternate universe? What's going on? And he's like, no. And then I found out that this got a theatrical release in Europe, like it's a major film, and went nowhere here, which is totally unusual.
Yeah, and this guy who directed Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah,
and the Brawl in Cell Block 99, which did get a theatrical release,
which was in the running for our awards discussion. I mean, that popped up every few minutes for various categories.
Yeah. Anyway, this movie is about a couple of cops. The old timer Mel Gibson, his partner Vince Vaughn. They get caught on video, messing some people up pretty bad and get suspended. It's a bad scene. So they decide to go into the they're broke, is what they are.
Yeah.
And they decide to go into the underworld to try to make some money, and they stumble across some stuff they weren't thinking they were going to stumble across. There was a time when films like this sort of worked as theatrical releases. I think we may be past that here now. At best, I think these kind of films are going to be streaming movies.
Yep.
I'm almost certain of it.
Yep, for sure. So here we got one this was one of the films that got released early part of the year. I covered this on radio at the time, and it was one of the more competent, but still not terribly good, early January releases. Crap usually comes out in January. So you're always surprised when something is competent. Adam Robitel directed Escape Room. And really, the best thing about it is the direction. There's some very, very clever and sharp direction in this thing.
I like that. The young lady, she's in our favorite
Taylor Russell.
Taylor Russell from Lost in Space.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm nuts about her.
So here's the thing about Escape Room. So Escape Room, I didn't even know these things existed. There are apparently for the idle rich, or for even just the idle millennial gamesters, if you get sick and tired of your video games, you can go to a thing called an escape room, which is some kind of a deal where you go with other people and it's like a live room video game. You're in this room and you have to escape, and there are clues in the room, and you and everybody else have to figure out, is there a little note there? Maybe that's a clue, and you got to put it all together, and you go through, you figure your way out of this. And there are this is a thing apparently. So somebody, of course, had a very smart idea and said, why don't we do a horror movie called Escape Room, where it's a series of really elaborate escape rooms and people actually die, and it winds up being, it winds up being sort of like a more elaborate version of Saw, right? That's kind of what they were going for. It is an interesting conceit. There have been a number of independent films that go into this exact same place. One of them, relatively recently, was written by James Gunn, the very controversial, or hopefully not too controversial, director of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And he wrote the Belko Experiment in 2016, which is more or less the same kind of thing. It's not about an escape room, but it's about a bunch of people who work in an apartment or in an office building in Colombia or something, and then they find out that it's not really a thing. They're supposed to, do this this Agatha Christie deal and start killing each other to see who actually survives. It's testing your primal instincts. So it's a little bit of Saw, it's a little bit of And Then There Were None, right? It's that kind of vibe going. So a bunch of people find themselves in an escape room because they think they're going to make some money, and they were all invited through some little mysterious invitation. And next thing you know, it's a horrific survival test, and they go through a series of these different rooms that are all very elaborate and stranger and curiouser, and some emulate the outdoors, and temperature changes, and there's ice, and it's all this stuff that could never conceivably be all rammed into a single building. You would literally be spending billions of dollars to create this kind of an elaborate torture game. But anyway, it makes for a very competent film. Does the movie work? Not really. It's still kind of dumb, and the big reveals are not very interesting. It's pretty boilerplate, but Robitel does a hell of a job directing it. It is logistically very, very impressive, and I think he's going to go on to much bigger things. Produced by Neil Moritz, who cranks a lot of this junk out on a regular basis. But what is really good is what Tim said. Two of the actresses in this are phenomenal. Taylor Russell is effectively the star. She plays Judy on the new Lost in Space, and she is wonderful. She's a wonderful actress on that show, in this movie. Forget about how bad some of the other stuff in the movie is. And the other one here, another one of my favorite actresses from television, Deborah Ann Wall from Daredevil, who is just, I'm so just mad about her, I can't control it. So those two actresses, two of my favorite actresses, new revelations in the last few years. Love them both.
Which is so funny because, I've become fairly jaded about all these sort of actor things, but every now and again, and it's usually an actress. Every now and then, every blue moon, an actor, but usually an actress who comes along and just pops my cork. It's just,
and there's two of them.
Extraordinary,
And there's two of them here, and I love them both.
So emotive.
So this has Movies Anywhere code on it as well. You can add that and forever watch Escape Room and feel like you're trapped in an escape room. Also deleted and extended scenes, alternate ending that is completely negligible. There's absolutely no reason that they should have included it. It's just kind of a curiosity. And they actually have some cast and crew stuff and a really, really interesting featurette on how the rooms were created, which is the thing that I found most interesting. Actually, more interesting than the movie. How the rooms were created, really one of the best featurettes I've seen in a long time.
This is actually a fairly dastardly little thriller here that kind of lives in the same zone as that. Fortune Defies Death. Is a film about this family that's invited out to the estate of their patriarch. He's been dead for 10 years. And they're finally going to read the will. A vast fortune is at stake, but they have to sort of survive the gauntlet of this lawyer, this who's going to evaluate some things. The one thing that they're trying to find out specifically is what happened to the one adopted daughter of this guy that's been. She disappeared not long after he died. The question is she going to show up and claim this fortune because she was the kid he actually liked? Anyway, it's a neat little sort of crunchy movie. Not much on here by way of special features, but it's a good movie nevertheless.
4K release of a new DC Universe movie, animated, Justice League versus the Fatal Five. One of the things that came up when we were talking about Endgame on Friday is why can't DC do what Marvel does? Why does DC keep tripping over itself? And why is Marvel having, every time DC trips over itself, Marvel makes gains. And there was a moment when people were like, well, let's see there was no Avengers movie yet, and there was certainly a Justice League movie in the works, and everybody was saying, ooh, who's going to get the edge? There was a little bit of parody. Now there's no more parody. The Justice League movie was a big disaster. DC has backed off of the whole idea of the DC Extended Universe, and the Marvel Universe is a giant hit, and it's going to be the biggest film of all time.
Well, they don't even have any actors anymore over on the DC
they don't.
side. Superman is gone.
Superman's gone.
Batman's gone. They're all gone.
So, Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Shazam have done well, but not that well.
No. Not comparatively speaking, and not as a part of the universe. They did well as these movies that live by themselves.
Yeah. So my question is this: you have aspects of the DC properties that do especially well. What Greg Berlanti has done on television with Supergirl and Flash. And Green Arrow and the what are they called? The
Guardians of
Tomorrow,
Legends of Tomorrow,
DC's
Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah.
That's all really great stuff. And that's a connected universe in ways that the Marvel universe is. Now, Berlanti, I think they're afraid to hand the reins to him because he was a co-writer on Green Lantern, and that didn't work out so well for them. But I do think that they should consider the people who do these DC Universe animated films. Find whoever is overseeing this and let them take control of the DC Universe the way that Kevin Feige did, because they get it.
Yep.
They're fans. These things are really, really sharp. They're well conceived. If you elevate...
They can't get it together. Look, they have... Why isn't the kid who plays Flash, Grant Gustin?
Yeah, why isn't he the movie Flash?
Why isn't he the movie? If he's the movie Flash, I already like this movie better because I'm nuts about him.
I know.
Now I'm just pissed.
I know.
So I don't know.
I know. It makes no sense. Makes no sense. And I felt the same way when they brought Superman onto Supergirl, and here, I'm hoping that they're going to bring in, Superman, and they bring in some guy who doesn't even look like Superman, and it's a new Superman. Why would you do that?
Stop doing that.
Even if you brought in Dean Cain, even if you went there, right? Or the guy from Smallville. Like, give me a Superman that I'll recognize, not just, oh, look, some guy you dragged in off the street. Come on, stop it. Anyway, Justice League versus the Fatal Five is really, really sharp. It's well written, really well animated, and it goes into some really, really interesting places. This is the only place I can go for my Green Lantern fix anymore, is these animated films. It's really, really interesting. And this is a female Green Lantern here, by the way. You've got to remember, Green Lantern Corps, lots of different Green Lanterns. So there's just so much that they can do, and these people know exactly what to do it, and some really fascinating villains here, and put the Justice League on their heels. Emerald Empress and Validus putting together this diabolical scheme. It's really very, very sharp, and I wish that this level of DC engagement could make it into the films. I really do.
Yeah, but they're all just
I know.
Sort of separate things.
Really good looking 4K too, by the way. Not much else on here. I mean, some special features that are sort of standard. And there's one that's a bit of a tease, but and the commentary is good. But otherwise, see it for the 4K.
This is a fairly creepy nature-based horror movie that I have here that's all loosely based on these things that actually happen. So up in Canada, they started finding these really deeply deformed frogs.
Ew.
More than just the two-head kind of things. Just, they're coming as just frogs. Obviously chemicals and things happening in the water. So anyway, they took that sort of ecological mystery and wove it into this very scary sort of a horror film that starts with the frogs, and then the next thing you know, it's a family, a mother and her son are out in the woods, and they're investigating all of this, and they start to realize that it's not just the frogs that are becoming mutated, and sort of speculation on where it could go. The wolves, to this, to that, and is it possible that it could happen to the people too? There's a really creepy two-headed dog on the cover of this thing, and so what are you going to do? Anyway, a fairly creepy movie. Not much on the DVD, Blu-ray here, or this is just a straight up. Oh, this is a DVD.
No, it's
Blu-ray.
It's Blu-ray.
That's a Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's Blu-ray.
That's all we got.
All right, I'm gonna do a few music things, and then we're gonna go into some docs. I got some foreign here. Maybe I'll do the foreign before we get into the docs. So some music stuff. A couple of things from Naxos. Real quickly, the Johann Strauss Orchestra in Vienna performing a 50-year anniversary concert, which is lovely. I'm a big fan of Strauss, not just because of 2001, but the Strauss family created some of the greatest waltzes of all time. I grew up with a German mother who loved Strauss and all things Austro-German, and this is really some great stuff. So this was recorded in 2016 in October at the Golden Hall of the Musikverein in Vienna, and it's wonderful. 15 different performances of Strauss classics, and it's beautiful. You're going to want to just dance all around your house. It's really terrific. On a Blu-ray, the Vienna Johann Strauss Orchestra. And then there is also Lessons in Love and Violence, which is an opera with music by George Benjamin and text by Martin Crimp. This is a modern opera performed at the Royal Opera House in London. Directed by Katie Mitchell, and it's okay. Modern operas are not my favorite thing, but these are the guys who wrote an opera called Written on Skin. Modern operas kind of feel a little bit weird. I don't want to say anachronistic. It's the opposite of anachronistic. It's something old. That, this is something new that feels like it should be old. So whatever the antonym is for that, but it's very nicely put together, and I think what the problem is, it's sung in English. That's what it is.
You need your opera. German opera is not my thing. Italian opera, absolutely.
That's it. I kind of wanted to hear it in Italian. German, not so much. That's a little bit rough. The Wagnerian.
Yeah.
I feel like they're yelling at me.
They just always sound angry, even when it's about love. But Italian opera, yeah.
So both of those are on Blu-ray, and then we also have a really, really cool DVD CD combination here. Josh Groban, Bridges Live at Madison Square Garden. Josh Groban is not everybody's taste. I think he has a great voice. I like a lot of his stuff.
It's a show voice.
It's a Broadway voice.
Yeah, Broadway.
But he's done very, very well with it, and this is lovely. Everything here is DVD, and the DVD and the CD mirror each other for the most part. But it's a really, really great performance and a collection of songs, and he holds the audience without kind of embellishing it too much. This isn't like a Madonna or Kylie Minogue, or it isn't one of those deals where it's just flamboyance and Lady Gaga and all the rest of the stuff. No, he pretty much holds it with just the singing, and it's good. And you get some guest appearances on here, which one of which is really, really terrific. And it's good, definitely good. That's a CD DVD combo set. Josh Groban, Bridges Live from Madison Square Garden.
Lovely. What, you gonna do some of these docs?
Yeah, you got some. Tim's got some PBS stuff. So yeah, let's knock some of those out.
I particularly enjoyed this one about Charlie Pride. Charlie Pride, I'm Just Me. Charlie Pride was, ironically, we think of him as being a black country singer that broke that barrier.
Yeah.
Now, this is insane. If you grew up in the South like I did, the Midwest and South like that, there were black people doing country music
all the time.
All the time. But there's this notion that Charlie Pride, with Porter Wagner and all, this is the old school country music, that he's was the only one. He was not the only one.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, he's Charlie Pride, and he was wonderful. Charlie Pride.
I love Charlie Pride stuff.
And this is
one of those. There are certain country voices that I grew up with, and I've never been a huge fan of country. But in the pre-Garth Brooks era, Garth Brooks was the guy that made it okay for people who didn't like country to like country, because dude, he's like on the stage and he's bashing guitars.
Got that black hat.
He's got that. Yeah, he's got a thing going, real country thing. But there are certain voices that just they're like velvet, and they just go right to your soul. And Charlie Pride had one of them. Conway Twitty had one of them. There are just certain voices that are just really smooth, and I love Charlie Pride. And such a sweet man too, just a really wonderful, sweet man. That's great. But yeah, the star who broke country music's Colorberry. I guess it's a good.
It's a hook.
It's a hook.
It's just not true.
No.
There are actually, generally speaking, there have never been any color barriers in music in the United States of America.
It's true.
Generally speaking,
not in jazz, not even hip hop,
not hip hop. I'm sorry, these things have always been just as anyway.
Yeah.
Decoding the Great Pyramids. This one is about the Great Pyramid at Giza. One of the last surviving wonders of the ancient world. The pharaoh Khufu's tomb is in this particular pyramid. And to this day, we have not been able to figure out how that tomb is so precisely set up and measured to align with stars and all kinds of crap. They had none of the surveying tools that we had back then. It's just absolutely. So this sort of looks at all of that and considers it from an engineering standpoint and point of view. It's not really about anything mystical or anything like that. But it's just really interesting stuff that I thoroughly enjoyed. This one is mostly from WGB out of Boston, PBS documentary on Nova, part of the Nova series.
Yeah.
You want to knock off one of those?
Yeah, I got a couple here real quick. Both of them kind of living in the same general place. From First Run Features is Anote's Arc by Mathieu Ritz, Rytz. Interesting spelling for the French director's name. This is a brisk 77-minute long but very, very interesting doc about the island nation of Kiribati, which is one of the places where climate change is not a debate necessarily. There are all kinds of debates about who's causing it and what's causing it and how much and how, where, and this and the other thing, and it gets all into but 75% of scientists, but no, and climate deniers, and then the people in London who've been running around like the woman glued her breasts to the pavement in a climate protest. We're getting into just really weird place now. But Kiribati, quite literally has been seeing the ocean levels rise around them.
Mm-hmm.
Who's causing it? What's causing it? Doesn't matter to them. All they know is it's happening, and they have to deal with it. And that may mean literally leaving the island and going somewhere else and seeing their entire many thousand-year-old culture ripped apart as they become refugees, effectively environmental refugees around the world. It's a really, really interesting look at this fascinating culture and this dilemma, and people who have just lived kind of on the edge of civilization for thousands of years and like a paradise until it's threatened with not being there anymore. So it's a really it's interesting, and the title come from Anote's arc comes from the name of the president. Anote Tong is the president of Kiribati. So Anote's arc is the documentary. It's quite good. It's very, very well done. And then Piripkura, the last two survivors. This is about a tribe in Brazil, and the last two members of this tribe. Brazilian tribes in the Amazons have sort of been endangered for many, many generations. There is an ethical question as to, are you helping these indigenous people by kind of isolating them and letting them live as they have for thousands of years and continue to be primitive, or is that really doing them a disservice? Would they be better served by somebody coming into the jungle and saying, you could have running water and go to college? Does that kill something? Are you really helping them by not giving them that choice? There are some really interesting questions around that, but it doesn't go into all of those tangents here, but you're certainly led to consider some of them, and it's a really interesting collection of dilemmas here. With beautiful photography of the rainforest, and it is, I mean, 1989 is the first time that this tribe was contacted, and they have to renew the status every 2 years as to whether you're going to continue to protect them. So it's a lot of really interesting ethical questions here, and a lot of problems, obviously, in Brazil that we don't consider here because this is not necessarily.
Yeah, and a
part
lot
of
of that
politics.
has to do with the fact that there are corporations and very powerful people that want that land.
That's true.
And the resources on that land, and are not particularly concerned with those people at all. Living volcanoes. This is absolutely fascinating. PBS nature doc. There are volcanoes all over Earth. Most of them are alive, and they're becoming more and more active. Around the world today, about 30 volcanoes erupt every day. We don't hear about it much unless it's one of those big ones, that big crazy one that erupted in Europe.
Yeah.
Or they're in some populated or around some populated area. But the fact of the matter is some 30 volcanoes erupt every single day on Earth.
I know.
It's happening.
It's crazy. It's all the time.
Now, the thing about a volcano is this. They're supposed to erupt. They're not doing anything. We think of them as this horrible. No, this is the way Earth is actually made. Volcanoes make Earth, terra firma. That's what we're made out of.
I hate to put it this way, but when nature calls for people and for the Earth.
Yep, that's it.
It's got to get rid of that stuff somehow.
That's it. What it means is we have to start thinking about that crazy eruption that was in Hawaii.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, that just ran on for days. And people in their homes are like, "Why are your home? Why did you build a house on the volcano
in a lava flow?"
And I remember Mount St. Helens. I was in the Air Force when that happened.
Yeah.
Only one person was killed when Mount St. Helens erupted here, Washington State, right?
Yeah.
And that was just, I was just like, really? A volcano erupted here in the United States of America? Yeah.
And it wasn't like the eruptions are different. Mount St. Helens was an explosion.
It was an explosive eruption.
That blew the whole top right off of that thing. Steam.
Literally almost like a cartoon volcano eruption.
It was like 300 feet shorter.
Yeah.
After the eruption.
Yeah. Mini volcanoes sort of like blow out the side, and it's like a lava kind of flow thing that happens. So it's very interesting, man. Watching that. Homo Spacius is another PBS doc that we're looking at. This one is simply asking the question whether or not human beings will be able to adapt our actual physical selves such that we will be able to travel in space for long periods of time to get to places like Mars. There is a manned Mars missions planned for about 30 years from now.
Yeah.
And there are all sorts of calculations that has to be done. There are those two twin astronauts, Mark something and his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them spent about a year on that space station out there. And they did that thing of where they measured them both in all of these different sort of spots to see what. And there were all kinds of differences that happened. Brain size, their actual physical body. One of them, the one who was in space, got shorter.
Yeah.
And most of these things we could recover from, though. So it's a very, very interesting sort of question, scientific question here. Will human beings actually be able to venture out into space, in that sort of Star Trek kind of way? Or is this something that the human body is simply not made for? Or will the human body adapt eventually to be able to travel out in space for long periods of time? So all of these things are possibilities, and I find it absolutely fascinating, every bit of it.
That's great stuff.
Predator on the Reservation. Now, this is a Frontline documentary. It was just absolutely devastating. So a fellow named Dr. Stanley Weber roamed around a number of Native American reservations, including the Pine Ridge Reservation, as well as several others in South Dakota and every place, basically molesting young Indian boys.
Oh,
this was a situation analogous to the Catholic Church situation, that apparently analogous to the Boy Scout situation. Now, apparently, men, if you get too many of them together, they just start doing crap. What the hell is wrong with us?
That's why there are women, because when you put too many men together in one room, we make a mess of everything.
Everything. Yeah. I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah.
Women, just we just don't. Just let the women run every damn thing, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, this is a devastating document. It's only about 60 minutes long, but what's really devastating about this is that everyone was talking about this guy, Dr. Stanley Weber.
I know.
Everyone was saying that this guy is roaming around. Yet he did. 30 years. Some of it has to do with the fact that it was happening on Native American reservations. So anyway, PBS Predator on the Reservation.
Got a bunch of really cool docs here, too. Never Ending Man, Hayao Miyazaki. We were so privileged to have given the great Hayao Miyazaki our Career Achievement Award by the LA Film Critics Association this last year. And it's timely, because this documentary recently came out about him and his extraordinary career, and it's a beautiful, beautiful doc. I wish it was longer. I wish this thing was like 2 or 3 times as long. It's a beautiful, beautiful look at a guy who has had, it's only 70 minutes long. It could easily be 3 hours long, and it still wouldn't even scratch the surface of his contributions to animation. He is known certainly as the greatest practitioner of anime ever. Anime is the school of Japanese animation, but it gets into more than that. It's about his philosophy of life, and about his announced retirement over and over, which never seems to really happen. And it really is. It's a look also at Japanese culture as filtered through one of its most iconic artists, and it's just wonderful. It's a look inside the creative process of a very, very distinctive artist, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful just to see him drawing. Is such a joy. We see the result of it so often, but to actually see him doing it, it's like witnessing Walt Disney all over again. It's a beautiful film. It's on Blu-ray and DVD from Shout, and I just can't say enough about it. We also have a very, very disturbing documentary here on Blu-ray only, and I don't really know how I feel about this. It's well done, I guess. It's from Magnolia. It's called Tickled. The tagline, "It's not what you think."
Yeah.
So here's what's going on here. This is just so freaking weird. The documentary filmmaker here, and there are 2 of them. There are 2 directors, David Farrier and Dylan Reeve. But David Farrier is the one who really kind of discovered this, and he saw something when he was just surfing the web about competitive tickling, and he thought, like, literally competitive endurance tickling. And he thought, what the hell is that?
Who's competing, the tickled or the tickler?
Yeah, so he just decided to inquire about this and opened up a whole weird, disturbing world that I kind of wish had been left underneath the rock, because I didn't need to know about this. And the problem is that there's an actual industry, and much of it is right here in our backyard in Los Angeles. There's an entire industry around tickling as this weird kind of fetishistic thing, and they do tickling videos, and people buy these, and they watch people get tied up and tickled.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, you people are weird.
Yeah.
I try to be as broad-minded as I possibly can,
And you
but
got way too much time.
I draw a line in some places, and this has got to stop.
Pull yourself together, people. But you know what? Not as freaky as those bronies.
No, that's that. But the thing is, this even gets darker than you think. Like even at the point when you go, this tickling stuff is weird, then it gets criminal. Then it actually gets criminal, and you go, I'm sorry, how much lower into the pit are we going to get with this stuff? This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is like watching a hardcore with George C. Scott all over again.
My goodness.
This is, just, I don't need to, it's got to stop somewhere. It goes into a very strange place. Tickled. A documentary, you have no idea that it's going to go there. The Long Shadow is a really, really good film. This was the Mill Valley Film Festival. And this is... This kind of goes into a place that we hear talked about on the news a lot, and it's become part of the political conversation with a lot of finger pointing. But nobody really kind of wants to delve into a lot of the present manifestations of white supremacy and racism and things of that sort as they really do exist as a legacy of 19th century slavery. And so you have two filmmakers here, both of them Southern-born white filmmakers who decide that they want to try to examine this from their particular point of view. And so they go deep into the South and into a lot of the institutions, the political institutions, to see if there is still, where the residue of the Civil War and the pre-emancipation, pre-Reconstruction mindset still lives. And a lot of fascinating stories that they find, and a lot of very disturbing stuff, and a lot of encouraging stuff too. So it's a really, really interesting socio-economic exploration. It's an odyssey of sorts, like a philosophical odyssey, but it's very, very good, and could easily have been longer as well. But I like movies that are longer. Yeah. Tim wants Avengers to be shorter. I want it to be longer. Anyway, 87 minutes long. From Passion River, the documentary is The Long Shadow by Francis Causey.
Interesting. Target St. Louis, which I'm from St. Louis.
This is your backyard. You know this stuff.
This is my backyard, and I grew up, during this period when this was actually happening. This that I am talking about is the U.S. Army. We all know about the Tuskegee experiment.
Sure.
That sort of thing happened all over the nation, generally speaking, in minority communities, sometimes Latino communities, mostly black communities, often in the South. Many of them we do not hear about it. One of them was a history of secret testing that the U.S. Army did with aerosol radiation tests.
Yeah.
On the poor black neighborhoods in St. Louis, North County, St. Louis, where I grew up and lived my entire life. They were doing this across my entire childhood. Aerosol radiation tests. It caused all kinds of havoc in the community. Cancer rates in that community were insane back then. Gigantic keloids that would form on people's faces. I mean, it was just... Anyway, this is the reason why sometimes we run into the problem of folks trusting the government. So right now, we're involved in a measles outbreak. In the United States.
At UCLA, where I went to school, yeah.
And why? Well, we're involved in the measles outbreak because people stopped vaccinating, lost our herd, what do you call it, herd immunity. Why? Because there was a belief, because the government, why? Because of things like this.
Yeah.
And Tuskegee.
Yeah.
The connections are made where they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it creates the problem that gives us measles right now. So these horrible tests in St. Louis are why somebody got measles at UCLA a couple of days ago.
It's unbelievable, and why we've got outbreaks of typhus and things like that downtown LA.
Anyway, fantastic film, only 67 minutes long. The director's a young man from St. Louis named Sean Slater, who I happen to know.
Terrific. Learning to see the world of insects. So I first became interested in insects. By the way, let me just go off tangent a little bit. I posted this on Facebook. Speaking of insects, this quote unquote professor at Oxford. Did you see this?
Mm-mm.
There's a professor at Oxford, a Korean professor at Oxford, who apparently wrote a book in Korean, but somebody translated it, and now everybody's like, what are you? Where he thinks that the Earth is presently, we've been invaded by aliens, and that there are 4 different types of aliens who are interbreeding with us. This is why climate change is so essential, because it's threatening their survival. That's why they're interbreeding with us. And that there are 4 different types, and one of them is very reptilian, and another kind is very insect-like, and they are the ones who give orders to the other 3.
Mm-hmm.
This is so wacky.
Do you realize that is
this
the
man
plot?
teaches classes.
That is the plot. That is the plot line of the Enterprise series in which Scott Bakula played the captain.
Yeah.
That's the plot. There are insectoids
Yeah.
and there's a plot in there over there. So I don't know whether he's got stuck in that or what. But this is a little. Oh my God.
Anyway, though, apart from all that insect stuff, when I was a scout, when I was once in scouting, I remember I got my etymology merit badge, and I collected insects that would disgust me now, and I'm putting pins through the butterflies and the mantis and all the whatever it was that I was finding, cockroaches, who knows what. And my mother helped me a lot at the time, and it was good. I was very proud of my insect collection, and all of that came swarming back.
Very good.
When I watched the special edition of Learning to See the World of Insects by Jake Ullman. And this was a really cool South by Southwest documentary a few years back. And this is on Blu-ray. It's spectacular photography of the insect world, really beautifully done. Most of the nature documentaries that we get now, even the stuff out of PBS, they don't go into insects because people think insects are icky. But Ullman does not, and he goes right into the the Amazon rainforest, where insects are certainly bigger and gnarlier than anywhere else. And just gives us a look at this amazing world. It's a totally different world. The world that they inhabit is not the world that we inhabit, and it really is just wonderful and beautiful and thoughtful on so many different levels. And it's really, really great. Now it's Jake Ullman's son. Bob Ullman is the one who directed this, and together they just did a great job, a really, really great job. And it's educational, it's beautiful, and it's poetic, and it's wonderful.
Well, that's so sweet. Canine Soldiers, the militarization of love. This is really just a lovely doc about the dogs, the canines, and their handlers in the Army and other services that mostly go out looking for improvised IEDs, improvised explosive devices. In the Middle East and other places, here in the United States too, for that matter. But these dogs, mostly German Shepherds, who are born and bred to this task and live with their handlers their entire lives. And they're just brilliant. The film also goes into just sort of like how humans and canines sort of came up together, and why we have that particular sort of bond that we have with dogs. It's really just a lovely film about soldiers and their dogs.
So we got a documentary here called Eating Animals by a filmmaker named Christopher Quinn, produced and narrated by Natalie Portman. This was at Telluride a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what this is based on the book by Jonathan Safran Foer, which is all about why we should all go out and just start slaughtering as many animals as possible and just eating them raw and live. And it's a beautiful, and I'm so glad that Natalie Portman is on board with that, because I really like the idea of slaughtering animals. I am, of course, joking.
Yeah.
This is about the environmental impact of meat eating. Now, there's a little bit of a controversy about this. Now, a lot of people are getting very resentful of the climate change movement, because it's no longer about lessening your carbon footprint by what you do with your car, with your factory, or whatever. Now there's pressure to abandon eating meat, like the people in London who've been gluing their body parts to the pavement and doors are saying, meat equals heat, which a lot of people take. Well, whether or not you agree with it, whether or not you intend to change your life, there are some interesting facts associated with it.
Yeah.
And look, I don't eat beef or pork. I haven't done so for nearly 30 years. Personal choice. I have no problem with people who do, but I will eat poultry until the sun comes up. I have no problem killing birds and eating them. Why? Because I've seen the Hitchcock film. I know that birds are our mortal enemy, and I'm doing my part.
They're trying to kill us.
Otherwise, chickens and turkeys will just overrun us. And don't even get me started on pheasants. But that said, factory farming, all these things that go into this, and the use of hormones and antibiotics and all that. There's a lot of stuff involved in the farming of animals, especially beef, that is worth knowing. Whether or not you choose to do it, whether or not you care, that it's worth knowing. And it's a very interesting doc. The documentary Food Inc. kind of started this juggernaut years ago. Food Inc. was horrifying to me for about 18 seconds, and then I went and had myself some chicken nuggets.
We do forget. Yeah.
My sister-in-law, however, became a vegetarian after seeing Food Inc. It
Yeah.
had that
So
powerful
impact.
effect. Yeah, it had an impact. Anyway, it's called Eating Animals. Kind of a labor of love of Natalie Portman, and it's very nicely put together.
The Wandering Muse is a film about Jewish music in the diaspora. It basically follows these performers of Jewish music all around the world as they perform all of this absolutely extraordinary and beautiful, beautiful music. Much of which is highly religious and uplifting. Some of which tells stories. Others of which is just funny and sweet. It's really, really just a lovely, lovely film. The Wandering Muse.
Also have Donna Haraway, Storytelling for Earthly Survival. So Donna Haraway is one of a number of very noted feminist thinkers and writers who has her own obviously very interesting ideas of all kinds of things, everything from technology to history and on and on and on. And this is basically just a very simple documentary that lets her talk about all of her favorite topics, everything from sex to history and society and the role of men and women in technology and on and on and on. It's she has an opinion about just about everything. You know what? You may or may not agree, but she is passionate about what she thinks and she makes her case. And if you walk away, you can at least be able to talk about her in company with people who may or may not know about her. So this is from Icarus Films Home Video, just a portrait of a very interesting current thinker, and it's worth checking out. She's got a lot of very strong opinions, this lady.
Interesting stuff. The Bauhaus movement, which was a sort of architectural designed aesthetic movement begun in 1919, is 100 years old. And this documentary, The Bauhaus Spirit, 100 Years of Bauhaus, explores that long and fascinating history. The Bauhaus movement actually had a lot to do with functionality. It had to do with creating things that were beautiful and designed well, but worked well, too. And I know you know a lot about this.
No, I don't actually. This is why I'm laughing. I'm laughing here while Tim's talking about this because I'm such an idiot. Like so seriously, truly, there are things that I look. I know a lot about a lot of stuff. Like I could be a real jerk in a lot of party situations where I'm like, I know more about that than you do, and this will go on for quite some time. Oh yeah, I know all about that. And I'm that guy until you get to things like Bauhaus, and then I'm the guy that goes, oh, that was a great band. For me, for decades, Bauhaus was a band from the '80s. It was a new age band, and then suddenly this DVD comes, and I'm like, huh.
What's funny is that band was engaged
in
Bauhausian.
Exactly. It's hysterical.
It's really, really cool. Anyway, but when you look at the world and you see a whole lot of clean lines, much adornment gone. You're looking at Bauhaus.
It's fascinating.
You're looking at the work of Walter Gropius.
I feel like a whole new universe just opened up to me. I've got to learn about this.
It's really, really neat stuff. This is a wonderful documentary about that history and and what it has meant in terms of the world of design. You've never flown on an airplane, any airplane that wasn't wholly and completely designed in the Bauhaus. It's necessary for airplanes to work that way.
So interesting.
As opposed to how ornate things. Think about the Victorian period.
Yeah.
And all the flowers. And Bauhaus is the exact opposite of all of that.
Fascinating.
Coming out of all of that.
Among Wolves, a documentary by Sean Convey, was a big deal at a lot of festivals. This really made the rounds for quite some time. Beautifully shot film more than anything else. Very poetic in all kinds of ways, and that's unusual because this is a documentary about a biker club. And not just any biker club, but a biker club that grew out of the Bosnian War. And it's kind of an allegory in some ways. What it is it wants to look at all kinds of social upheaval, especially European social upheaval and ethnic upheaval, and it chooses this particular group of people in this moment, in this style of filmmaking, as the prism through which to analyze it. And it does like any smart documentary about this. It does not necessarily go where you think that it's going to go. Where it goes is to a herd of wild horses. And it's this intersection between these people and these animals and this place and this time, and it just kind of comes to this really, really evocative way of looking at human nature and history, and that may sound utterly bizarre and impossible to reconcile, but it really is a completely unusual film, entirely in the Bosnian language. It's about an hour and a half long, but really a fascinating journey, and it doesn't go where you think that it's going to go. You just have no idea where this is going to go. It's really, really interesting. It's very smart.
This is a very moving film, documentary about a young woman named Kara Tippett. Kara Tippett was a fairly noted blogger, about all kinds of things. Young woman with a husband and a child developed breast cancer. And it became fairly obvious that it was going to be terminal. And she just kept working and engaging in life and documenting that entire process with an eye toward not being particularly melancholy about all of it. Her notion was that she just wanted to sort of like leave a legacy of joy and love and have everyone who remembers her think about her like that, rather than in any other way. And this is just a lovely doc about that. It features Anne Voskamp, who was a mentor of hers, and Joni Erickson Tada, another friend of hers, very, very close friend of hers. So this is a movie that's about a scary subject, but it's about how you can deal with that scary subject without the fear being the overwhelming thing, and letting something else intervene. So lovely. The Long Goodbye, the Kara Tippett's story.
Really interesting couple of films here. This is Imaginary Feasts and Mina's Recipe Book, Terrorism, 1944, by filmmaker Anne Georget. This is the last thing we're talking about today on the show. This is so interesting. This is about food and recipes as protest, as representative of the human spirit. It's really amazing.
Particularly all the Yiddish recipes, Jewish recipes, and food, physically written out by people in concentration camps as they were in these concentration camps.
It's fantastic. So this is all about the people who, and not just concentration camps, but gulags and Japanese prison camps, and all, the practice of using recipes as a way of sort of preserving your humanity and sharing it with others and passing it on. And that's extraordinary. That's the subject of Imaginary Feasts. And then Mina's Recipe Book specifically focuses on one of those in particular. This is written by a woman when she was in Terezin in Czechoslovakia, a Nazi concentration camp, and what those recipes meant, what they represented. And you know, it's funny because a lot of this stuff is food that I would never eat. Yeah. But for some reason, I want to eat it. Like I want to make it. Once you know the story behind them, you go, "Oh my gosh, that's so important. I want to honor this woman by making that dish, even though I would never want sausage prepared that way. But damn it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to honor her." Really, really interesting. So those two films here together, and they're both short. You know, Mina's Recipe Book's only 45 minutes. Imaginary Feast is 70 minutes. It's a little over 2 hours between the two. Not even 2 hours, really. It's just about 2 hours. So, really good. Imaginary Feasts and Mina's Recipe Book. Did the festival rounds, too. Those were at the Toronto Jewish Film Festival and the Berlin International Film Festival, among others. So, Imaginary Feasts and Mina's Recipe Book, Terezin, 1944. Good job, Anne Georget. So with that, we are done this week, and we will be back next week. Still no resolution to the ongoing WGA ATA battle, but you know they say that could go on for years. I don't think it'll go on for years, months.
And what do we mean by resolution? I mean the WGA told their membership, fire your agents at these agencies. A good many of them have. Yeah. What else is there to do?
I don't know.
I mean, the agencies are mad and suing, of course, but the thing itself has happened, has it not?
It has. So now, I mean, I guess the question is, will there be a resolution? And who knows?
Yeah, because I'm just not sure if I'm the WGA that I do. Yeah. If I'm looking at those big agencies, we're not doing anything.
No.
We've told our membership what to do. The ones who want to maintain their membership with us are going to fire you, and that's it. And you can go be mad and talk to the judge, but that's it. It's over.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye.